The Valdrine Empire controlled the galaxy. 47 different alien species bowed to their rule. They had conquered thousands of worlds over 2,000 years. Their ships traveled faster than light. Their weapons could crack planets. They believed nothing could challenge them, but there was one place they never touched. One small yellow star in the outer rim of the galaxy. The star was called Sol. Around it orbited several planets, including one covered in blue oceans and green lands. The aliens called it Sol 3. Humans called it Earth. Ancient warnings surrounded this system. The architects, a race that disappeared long ago, had left messages. These messages appeared in every Valdrine computer. They said the same thing in 1,000 different ways. Stay away from Sol 3. Do not go there. Do not wake them. The warnings were clear, but they never explained why. For 800 years, the Valdrine obeyed. They marked the system as forbidden. Ships that came too close received automatic warnings. The High Council passed laws making it illegal to enter. Young Valdrine children heard stories about the haunted system where ancient monsters slept. But empires grow greedy. Rules get forgotten. And some people believe they are too smart to follow old warnings. Vexthor was a young Valdrine noble. His family controlled mining operations across 50 star systems. He was rich, powerful, and bored. He wanted more wealth, more fame, more everything. When his survey ships detected rare crystals in the Sol system, he saw an opportunity. These crystals were worth more than entire planets. They could power starships for centuries. They could make him the richest Valdrine in history. His advisors warned him. The system was forbidden. The old laws were clear. But Vexthor laughed at them. He said the warnings were just superstition. He said the architects were gone and their words meant nothing. He said fortune favored the bold. He sent his mining fleet into the Sol system. 20 massive ships, each one carrying thousands of workers and machines. They approached Earth slowly, scanning for the crystal deposits. What they found confused them. The planet below was green and blue but empty. No cities, no lights, no broadcasts. Scanners detected breathable air and liquid water. It was a perfect world for life, but nothing lived there, or so they thought. Then they found the structures. Massive underground facilities buried beneath mountains and oceans. They covered the entire planet. Similar structures existed on the red planet Mars and on Europa, a moon covered in ice. The power signatures were enormous. These facilities were using more energy than some stars produced. Vexthor ordered his teams to investigate. They drilled into one facility beneath a mountain range humans once called the Himalayas. What they found inside made them stop breathing. Pods. Millions upon millions of pods. Each one contained a creature in frozen sleep. The creatures stood on 2 legs. They had hair on their heads and smooth skin. They wore strange clothes. Monitors showed their hearts beating slowly, once every few minutes. They were alive, just sleeping. Vexthor's scientists studied one pod carefully. They read the alien writing on its side. The language was unknown, but computers could translate it. The pod contained a male named Taman. His title was Commander. His service record showed he was military. More exploration revealed the truth that made Vexthor's blood run cold with excitement, not fear. 4,700,000,000 of these creatures slept in facilities across 3 worlds, an entire civilization in frozen sleep. But Vexthor did not care about the sleeping aliens. He only saw the power cores. Each facility used massive energy cores worth more than the crystals. If he could extract those cores, he would become unimaginably wealthy. He gave the order his crew feared: shut down the facilities. Take the power cores, his chief engineer protested. If they shut down the power, the creatures would die. Vexthor shrugged. They were primitives who never achieved space travel. They probably put themselves to sleep because they were dying anyway. No one would miss them. The mining crews began their work. They started with the smaller facilities first. On Earth, 300 installations went dark. On Mars, 50 more. On Europa, 20. The stasis pods began failing. The creatures inside died in their sleep, never knowing what killed them. 2,300,000,000 humans died in 3 days. But some facilities had backup power. They activated automatically when the main power failed. Emergency systems kicked in. Wake-up protocols initiated. In the deepest facility, buried 5 miles beneath the Himalayan mountains, something changed. Commander Taman's pod registered the power failure. It detected the death of billions of other pods. It recognized an emergency. The pod began the wake-up sequence. Chemicals flooded Taman's body. His heart rate increased. His brain activity spiked. His eyes moved beneath closed lids. After 800 years of dreamless sleep, Taman began to dream. And his dreams were filled with screaming. His eyes opened. They were dark and cold. He took his first breath in 8 centuries. The air tasted wrong. The pod door opened with a hiss. Taman fell forward onto cold metal floor. Alarms blared around him. Red lights flashed. And somewhere above him, alien ships circled his world like vultures. Taman stood slowly. His muscles ached. His head pounded. But his training kicked in immediately. He moved to the nearest computer terminal. What he read there made him understand everything. They had been asleep for 800 years. Aliens had come, and they had just killed half of humanity. Taman's hands began to shake, not from fear, from rage. Taman was not alone. Across Earth, Mars, and Europa, emergency systems continued to wake survivors. The process was slow and painful. Bodies that had been frozen for 8 centuries did not wake easily. Bones ached. Muscles cramped. Minds struggled to understand where they were and when they were. In a research facility on Europa, Dr. Hyejin opened her eyes. She was a scientist who had specialized in alien life before humans went to sleep. She had volunteered for stasis, believing that when humanity woke, they might find other species among the stars. She never imagined those species would find them first. Her facility's computer gave her the terrible news. The year was wrong. They had slept for 800 years instead of 1,000. Power failures had killed billions, and alien ships were currently mining Europa's ice just 3 miles above her head. Hyejin felt sick. Not from the stasis, but from understanding. They were supposed to wake to a healed Earth. They were supposed to have time to rebuild. Instead, they woke to find strangers stealing from their graves. On Mars, a young woman named Jiwon woke in a colony bunker. She had been an engineer, one of the best. She helped design the stasis systems. She helped plan the terraforming equipment that should have been slowly transforming Mars into a green world during humanity's sleep. But when Jiwon accessed the bunker's external cameras, she saw alien machines tearing apart the terraforming stations. 800 years of patient mechanical work destroyed in days. The aliens were harvesting the equipment for raw materials. They treated human technology like garbage to be picked through. Jiwon's fingers flew across the control panel. She was checking system after system. The power cores were being stolen. The backup generators were failing. And worst of all, she could see the colony bunkers shutting down one by one. Each dark bunker meant thousands of dead humans. High above Earth in a defense station that orbited the planet, Yuna woke from stasis. She had been a strategic operations specialist for Earth's unified government. Her job was to think about worst-case scenarios and plan for them. She had planned for environmental collapse, asteroid impacts, solar flares, and even alien invasion. But she had never planned for this. They were supposed to wake together as a species ready to rebuild. Instead, they were waking in scattered groups while aliens stripped their home system for parts. It was the worst possible tactical situation. Yuna immediately began gathering information. She accessed what remained of Earth's satellite network. She counted the alien ships. She analyzed their movements. She read their communication intercepts that the automated systems had been recording, and she began to understand who these aliens were and what they wanted. The Valdrine were not invaders in the traditional sense. They did not want to conquer Earth. They did not even know Earth had been inhabited. To them, the Sol system was just an abandoned treasure waiting to be claimed. The sleeping humans were just unexpected complications. This made Yuna even angrier. They had not been attacked by an enemy. They had been casually murdered by thieves who did not think they mattered. Taman sent out emergency broadcasts on every frequency. He used old Earth codes, hoping other military facilities would respond. They did. Slowly, reports came in from around the world. 30 military bases had backup power. Maybe 50,000 soldiers had survived the awakening. It was a pitiful number. Before the sleep, Earth's defense forces numbered 20 million. Now Taman commanded 50,000, scattered across a planet, with equipment that was 800 years old. But 50,000 was better than zero. The first alien landing happened on the 3rd day after the awakening. A Valdrine supervisor named Krivan brought his shuttle down near Taman's facility. He wanted to inspect the native life forms that his sensors had detected moving around. Krivan did not come in peace. He came with weapons ready and restraints prepared. He had orders to capture some specimens for study. When he saw Taman and 5 other humans waiting outside the facility, he was delighted. These creatures walked upright and seemed intelligent. They would make interesting test subjects. Taman tried to communicate. He used hand signals. He pointed at the sky, then at the dead facilities, then at himself. He was trying to make Krivan understand that the aliens had killed billions of his people. Krivan did not understand, or perhaps he did not care. He raised his weapon and fired. The energy beam hit Taman in the chest, stunning him. The human commander fell backward, unconscious before he hit the ground. Krivan ordered his crew to load the specimens into the shuttle. As they dragged the unconscious humans toward their ship, one of Krivan's crew members said something about the creatures being quite durable. They had survived stasis failure. They might survive extensive testing, Krivan agreed. He was already thinking about which experiments to perform first, but he made a mistake. He left one human conscious. A young soldier had been hiding behind a rock formation watching. She saw everything. She saw the aliens stun her commander without provocation. She saw them talk about humans like they were animals. She saw them drag Taman away. She ran back to the facility. She sent out a message to every awakened human on Earth. The message was simple. They attacked us. Commander Taman captured. Protocol Apex authorized. Protocol Apex was humanity's final military contingency. It had been created during Earth's last wars, during the terrible century before the sleep. It meant only one thing: total war. No mercy, no restraint, victory or extinction. Across Earth, military installations received the message. Soldiers who had been hoping for peaceful contact changed their minds. Scientists like Heejin, who wanted to study the aliens, now wanted to stop them. Engineers like Jiwon, who had been planning repairs, started planning weapons. Strategists like Yuna, who had been calculating peace, now calculated war. In orbit above Earth, inside the Valdrine mining ship, Taman woke up. He was strapped to a table in a laboratory. Medical instruments surrounded him. Krivan stood nearby, examining a datapad and discussing which organs to scan first. Taman said nothing. He just looked at the alien with eyes that had gone completely cold. He memorized every detail of the room, every tool, every door, every weakness. His hands were bound, but they had not searched him properly. Inside his boot, a small knife remained hidden. Taman had been a soldier before the sleep. He had fought in the resource wars. He had done things he was not proud of. When humanity chose stasis, part of him was relieved. He thought he could sleep away from the violence. He thought he could wake up to a better world. But the violence had followed him through 8 centuries of sleep. And now it wanted more. Taman smiled. It was not a happy smile. Krivan noticed it and felt something he rarely experienced: unease. He did not understand why the specimen was smiling. He would understand soon enough. Yuna sat in the orbital command center, surrounded by screens showing data from across the solar system. She had been awake for 5 days now. 5 days of gathering information, counting resources and calculating odds. The numbers were not good. The Valdrine Empire controlled 47 species. They had colonies on 10,000 worlds. Their military numbered in the hundreds of billions. They had faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and weapons humanity had never imagined. Humanity had 2,400,000,000 survivors scattered across 3 worlds. They had ships that could not leave the solar system. They had weapons designed 800 years ago. They had no allies and no experience with space combat. Any reasonable calculation said humanity would lose. But Yuna had stopped being reasonable 3 days ago when she learned half her species had died in their sleep. She called a meeting. Using the emergency network, she connected with the other leaders who had emerged. Taman had escaped from the Valdrine ship, leaving 6 dead aliens behind him. Heejin had organized the scientists on Europa. Jiwon had rallied the engineers on Mars. Together they represented humanity's best hope. "We need to see something," Heejin said through the video connection. Her face looked tired and sad. "I found the historical archives. Everyone needs to understand why we went to sleep." She played the recordings. They showed Earth's final century, the water wars, where entire nations fought over rivers and lakes, the famine that killed 1 billion people, the pollution that made the sky turn gray, the temperature that kept rising until ice caps melted and coastlines drowned. But the worst recordings showed the weapons. Humanity's last century had been a race between survival and destruction. Engineers built amazing machines to clean the air, purify water, and grow food. But they also built terrible weapons because nations still fought each other even as the world died. Biological weapons that could target specific genes, nanomachines that could disassemble matter at the atomic level, railguns that could throw projectiles at a fraction of light speed, artificial intelligence that could hack any computer system. Nuclear weapons improved to be cleaner, smaller, and more deadly. The recordings showed the final war. It lasted 6 days. 300 million people died. Entire regions became uninhabitable. After that war, humanity's leaders made a choice. They could keep fighting and destroy their species, or they could sleep and hope time would heal both Earth and themselves. They chose sleep. But first, they locked away the worst weapons. They encrypted the databases. They built facilities designed to be impossible to break into. They hoped that when humanity woke, they would be better people who would never need those weapons again. We went to sleep because we were dangerous, Hyejin said quietly. Dangerous to ourselves. We needed time to change. Taemin's face on the screen was hard as stone. They did not give us that time. They killed billions of us. They treated us like animals. I do not feel very changed, Jiwon spoke next. I have been reviewing the old weapons databases. I can break the encryption. I can unlock everything. But we need to decide if we want to. Those weapons were locked away for a reason. Yuna looked at the faces on her screens. She saw anger, grief, and fear. She understood all of those feelings. But she was a strategist, and strategy meant making hard choices. The Valdrine High Council is meeting now, she said. Our automated systems intercepted their communications. Vexthor reported that Sol 3 has native life forms that became hostile. The Council is sending a security fleet. 50 ships, 200,000 soldiers. They are treating us like a minor problem to be cleaned up. 50 ships, Jiwon whispered. We have maybe 20 old defense satellites that still work. We have no fleet. No orbital weapons, nothing. We have ourselves, Taemin said. His voice was calm, but something dangerous moved behind his eyes. I have been training every soldier who woke up. We remember how to fight. Those aliens do not. They have been conquering primitive species for centuries. They expect easy victories. So we give them a hard loss, Yuna said. She began outlining her plan. It was brutal. It was clever. It was the kind of plan that made Hyejin look uncomfortable. This is wrong, Hyejin said. Some of these tactics violate every rule of warfare. Fake surrenders, targeting life support, using biological weapons. We will become exactly what we hoped to leave behind. We are what they made us, Taemin replied. They started this. We will finish it. The vote was 3-1. Hyejin voted against total war, but she was outnumbered. She looked at her fellow humans and saw people she barely recognized. The sleep was supposed to make them better. Instead, it just preserved what they were. Jiwon began unlocking the old arsenals. The passwords were complex, but she had always been brilliant with codes. One by one, the databases opened. Information flooded out. Weapon designs, tactical manuals, strategy guides written by humans who had perfected the art of killing each other. She felt sick reading some of the files. These weapons were designed to inflict maximum suffering, but she kept working because the alternative was letting aliens exterminate her species. On Mars, she activated old manufacturing facilities. Machines that had been sleeping for 8 centuries hummed to life. They began building things, drones, missiles, railgun ammunition. Each piece of machinery was old, but the designs were still deadly. Taemin trained his soldiers. He did not just train military personnel. Every human who could hold a weapon learned to fight. Doctors became combat medics. Teachers became snipers. Artists became saboteurs. He hated what he was doing to these people. But he hated the Valdrine more. Yuna planned the defense of Sol. She turned every moon, asteroid, and space station into a weapon. She calculated firing solutions. She identified weak points in Valdrine ship designs based on the vessels they had already captured. She worked 20 hours a day and slept only when her body forced her to. Hyejin did her part even though she disagreed with the approach. She studied Valdrine biology from the aliens Taemin had killed. She found their weaknesses. Their immune systems had never encountered Earth bacteria. Their skin was vulnerable to certain chemical compounds. Their breathing required slightly different oxygen levels than humans. She created weapons based on this knowledge, biological agents that would sicken Valdrine, but leave humans unharmed, gas compounds that would make their ships uninhabitable. She cried while she worked, but she did not stop. The Valdrine security fleet entered the solar system 4 weeks after the first human awakening. 50 massive warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They came expecting an easy pacification mission. They came with rules of engagement. They came believing in their superiority. They found a silent solar system. No communications, no warnings, no visible defenses. Their sensors showed human life signs on the 3 inner worlds, but no military installations, no weapons platforms, nothing. The fleet admiral was confused. Where was the hostile force Vexthor had reported? These seemed like primitives hiding underground. He ordered his ships forward, preparing for orbital bombardment and ground invasion. That was when the sun seemed to go dark for just a moment. It was not the sun. It was the light being blocked by 1 million drones rising from the inner planets, all of them accelerating toward the Valdrine fleet. The admiral had 3 seconds to realize his mistake. Then the first drones arrived. The drones hit the Valdrine fleet like a swarm of angry insects. Most were decoys, cheap machines designed to look like weapons on sensors. But scattered among them were real threats. Missiles with nuclear warheads, railgun projectiles moving at impossible speeds, explosive packages wrapped in stealth coating. The Valdrine fleet opened fire. Their energy weapons cut through space, destroying drones by the hundreds. Their point defense systems worked perfectly, shooting down incoming missiles. For 5 minutes it seemed like the fleet would survive easily. Then Yuna's real plan began. The drones were not the attack. They were the distraction. While the Valdrine focused on the swarm, human strike teams launched from hidden positions on asteroids. Small ships, barely large enough for 10 people, accelerated toward the enemy fleet. They were too small for the big sensors to notice during the chaos. Taman led the first team. They approached a Valdrine capital ship from below, where its weapons could not target them. Using magnetic clamps, they attached their ship to the hull. Then they began cutting through. The Valdrine did not expect borders. No civilized species used boarding tactics anymore. It was too dangerous, too primitive, too barbaric. But humans had never claimed to be civilized. Not anymore. Taman's team entered the Valdrine ship through a cargo bay. The aliens inside died before they could raise an alarm. Taman moved through the corridors with his soldiers following. They knew the ship's layout because Hygiene had studied the captured vessels. They knew where to go. The engineering section was lightly guarded. The Valdrine never imagined enemies would get this far inside their ship. Taman's team placed charges on the power core. Then they moved to life support and released Hygiene's biological agent. It was a modified Earth bacteria, harmless to humans but deadly to Valdrine. The charges exploded. The ship went dark. Life support failed. Alien crew members started choking on air that suddenly felt wrong. Taman and his team were already moving to the hangar, stealing a Valdrine shuttle to escape. Across the fleet, 30 more boarding teams did the same thing. They were not all successful. 10 teams died when they were discovered. 8 more failed to escape before their target ships exploded. But 12 teams succeeded, and 12 capital ships died from the inside. The fleet admiral watched his ships fall apart and could not understand what was happening. How were these primitives inside his vessels? How were they moving through shields and armor? How did they know exactly where to strike? He tried to regroup his fleet, pulling back to a defensive formation. That was when G1's surprise arrived. Asteroids, dozens of them, came flying in from the outer system. They had been accelerated to tremendous speeds using old mining equipment modified into mass drivers. The asteroids were not aimed at the ships. They were aimed at where the ships would be after they moved into defensive formation. Yuna had calculated it perfectly. The Valdrine fleet pulled back right into the path of relativistic projectiles. 3 more ships exploded. 2 more were crippled. The admiral ordered a retreat. He had lost 15 ships in 1 hour. This was supposed to be an easy mission. These were supposed to be primitives. But the humans were not done. As the fleet tried to flee, more surprises appeared. Old Earth satellites dormant for centuries suddenly activated. They were weapons from the final war armed with nuclear missiles. They fired everything they had. The Valdrine shield stopped most of the missiles. But some got through. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted ship systems. Computers failed. Communications went dark. In the chaos, human fighters attacked again, targeting the damaged ships. Jiwan herself flew one of those fighters. It was an old design, barely functional, but she had modified it with captured Valdrine weapons. She screamed as she flew, releasing 800 years of grief and rage with every trigger pull. She destroyed 2 Valdrine fighters. She damaged a cruiser. Then her ship took a hit and started tumbling. She managed to stabilize, but her engines were failing. She was going to die out here in the dark. A voice came over her radio. "Hold on, we are coming." It was Taman. His stolen shuttle swooped in, matching her tumble. Another soldier jumped out on a tether, grabbed her ship, and pulled her to safety. They barely escaped before her fighter exploded. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Valdrine security fleet was destroyed. Of 50 ships, 12 escaped. 180,000 aliens died. Human casualties were 40,000, mostly from the boarding teams that did not make it back. It should have been impossible. The Valdrine had better technology, more ships, and more experience. But humans had something the aliens lacked. 800 years of compressed rage and nothing left to lose. The surviving Valdrine ships limped back to their empire. The captain of one ship, an older Valdrine named Morthen, sent a message ahead. He wanted to warn the High Council what they faced. "They do not fight like intelligent beings," he reported. "They fight like they want to die, but they want to take us with them. Every ship is a weapon. Every asteroid is a trap. Every human is a soldier. They attacked us from inside our own vessels. They used nuclear weapons at close range, accepting their own deaths to kill us. They are not warriors. They are something worse." The message reached the High Council. Some members wanted to send a larger fleet immediately. Others argued for negotiation. A few suggested simply leaving Sol system alone and pretending humans did not exist. But Vexthor was furious. This was his fault. He had started this. His reputation was ruined unless he could fix it. He demanded the Council authorize a full battle fleet. 500 ships, 2 million soldiers. This was the force the Valdrine used to conquer entire civilizations. The Council agreed, but they also ordered a full investigation into the architect warnings. A scholar named Pelkor was given access to the ancient archives. He spent days decrypting old files, translating dead languages, and piecing together fragments. What he found terrified him. The architects had not left warnings to protect the galaxy from humanity. They left warnings to protect humanity from itself. The message was clear once fully translated. We found the humans during their nuclear age. They had discovered atomic power and immediately weaponized it. In 1 century, they went from simple flight to splitting atoms. Another century, and they had created weapons that scared them. They were too smart for their own good. Too creative. Too willing to sacrifice. We realized they would either destroy themselves or spread across the galaxy like a plague. We chose to contain them, hoping time would gentle their nature. We failed. They put themselves to sleep before we could act. If they wake naturally, perhaps they will be peaceful. If they wake to threats, pray to whatever gods you believe in. They burned their own world while still using primitive rockets. Imagine what they will do with starships. Pelkor brought this information to the High Council. He begged them to reconsider. But it was too late. The battle fleet had already launched. It would reach Sol system in 2 weeks. On Earth, Una received this information from an encrypted source. Pelkor had sent it, hoping humans would see reason and surrender. Instead, Una showed it to Taman, Jiwan, and Hyejin. "They think we are monsters," Taman said quietly. "Maybe they are right." "We are survivors," Jiwan replied. "They forced us to be monsters. Now they complain about it." Hyejin looked at the message for a long time. "We could leave. Take whatever ships we have, run, let them have the Sol system. Start over somewhere else." The room was silent. Then Una spoke. 2,300,000,000 humans died here. Their bodies are still in those pods. This is their grave. We do not abandon our dead, it was decided. Humanity would make it stand at Sol. They would face 500 Valdrine warships with whatever they could build in 2 weeks. It was suicide. It was hopeless. It was very human. Jiwan returned to her factories. Taman trained his soldiers harder. Una planned defenses. Hyejin prepared biological weapons she prayed they would never actually use. And across the solar system, humanity prepared to show the galaxy what the architects had feared. The Valdrine battle fleet arrived at Sol system with confidence. 500 warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering, shields that could withstand nuclear blasts, weapons that could crack moons, soldiers trained for centuries of warfare. The fleet admiral was a veteran named Kolvan who had conquered 23 worlds. He expected Sol 3 to be his 24th, but Kolvan was also cautious. He had read Morthan's report. He understood that humans were dangerous. So he approached slowly, sensors at maximum, weapons ready. He expected ambushes. He expected traps. He expected desperate resistance. What he did not expect was nothing. The solar system appeared empty. Human signals came from the 3 inner worlds, but there were no ships in orbit, no defense platforms, no asteroid forts, nothing but silence. Kolvan ordered his fleet into attack formation. Half would bombard Earth from orbit. The other half would invade Mars and Europa. 2 million soldiers would land on 3 worlds simultaneously. It would be over in hours. The fleet moved forward. Still nothing happened. They passed the orbit of Jupiter. Then the asteroid belt. Still no resistance. Kolvan began to relax. Perhaps the humans had exhausted themselves destroying the first fleet. Perhaps they had no more weapons. He was wrong. Yuna watched the Valdrine fleet on her screens. She had spent 2 weeks planning this moment. Every calculation, every probability, every move and countermove. She had learned how the Valdrine thought. They believed in overwhelming force. They believed in direct confrontation. They believed in their superiority. She would teach them differently. Now, she said quietly. Space itself seemed to come alive. What the Valdrine had thought was empty space was actually filled with millions of small objects. Tiny drones, missile pods, mines, all of them coated in materials that made them invisible to Valdrine sensors. They had been placed over 2 weeks, drifting slowly, waiting. The Valdrine fleet flew right into the minefield. Explosions blossomed across their formation. Shields flickered and failed. Hull plating cracked. Dozens of ships took damage before they even understood they were under attack. Kolvan ordered evasive maneuvers, but that was part of Yuna's plan. As the ships scattered, they moved into firing positions for the real weapons. Railguns hidden on asteroids, missile launchers buried on moons, energy weapons built into the hulls of dead ships the Valdrine thought were just debris. The barrage was devastating. 20 Valdrine ships exploded in the first minute. 50 more took heavy damage. The fleet that had arrived in perfect formation was now scattered and confused. Then Taemon's boarding team struck again. But this time there were not 30 teams. There were 300. Every captured shuttle had been studied, copied, and mass-produced. Jiwan's factories had been working non-stop for 2 weeks. The teams hit the damaged ships first. They cut through weakened hulls. They destroyed already stressed power cores. They released biological agents into compromised life support systems. Heejin's weapons worked perfectly. Valdrine soldiers started dying from diseases that seemed to come from nowhere. Kolvan tried to rally his fleet, but human tactics made coordination impossible. Whenever ships grouped together, asteroids fired at relativistic speed smashed into the formation. Whenever ships spread out, boarding teams picked them off one by one. The Valdrine could not win either way. G1 led a fighter squadron against a Valdrine carrier. Her ship was still mostly human design, but it mounted captured weapons. She flew through debris fields that would kill most pilots. She made turns that would crush most bodies. She had been an engineer before the sleep, but 2 weeks of constant combat had turned her into something else. Her squadron destroyed the carrier's launch bays. Without fighters, the massive ship was vulnerable. Taemon's team boarded it minutes later. The carrier fell silent, another trophy for humanity. On Earth, Heejin watched the battle from her laboratory. She had not wanted this war. She had argued for peace. But watching Valdrine ships fall, she felt something dark inside her. Satisfaction. These aliens had killed half her species. Watching them die felt right, even though she knew it should not. The battle lasted 12 hours. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Valdrine had expected to face primitives. Instead, they faced a species that had spent 800 years dreaming of better days, only to wake to a nightmare. That rage, focused and refined by weeks of planning, was unstoppable. When it ended, 488 Valdrine ships were destroyed or captured. 1,800,000 soldiers were dead. 12 ships escaped, their crews traumatized and broken. Human casualties were higher this time. 90,000 died. Most were boarding team members who did not make it out before ships exploded. Some were pilots whose luck ran out. A few were engineers whose weapons malfunctioned. But 90,000 dead to destroy a fleet of 500 was a ratio that made military strategists weep. The galaxy learned what happened at Sol. The Valdrine tried to suppress the news. But 12 surviving ships meant 12 crews telling stories. Soon every species knew. Humanity, a race nobody had heard of, had destroyed 2 Valdrine fleets. They had killed 2 million soldiers. They had done the impossible. Panic spread across the Empire. Species that served the Valdrine started asking questions. If humans could defeat the mighty Valdrine, what did that mean for everyone else? Trade routes became unsafe as merchant ships refused to fly near Sol. Insurance rates skyrocketed. 3 species requested independence from the Empire. On the Valdrine homeworld, the High Council met an emergency session. Some members demanded a 3rd fleet, even larger. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested using forbidden weapons, things even the Valdrine considered too dangerous to use. Bexthor stood before the council. This was all his fault, and everyone knew it. He should have faced punishment, but instead he made a speech about Valdrine pride, about not surrendering to primitives, about showing the galaxy that the Empire was still strong. Send everything, he demanded. Every ship, every soldier. Crush them completely. Make an example that will terrify the galaxy for 1,000 years. But an old council member named Hesral stood up. She had served for 3 centuries. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had read history that others had forgotten. I have decrypted more architect records, she said quietly. I found their final message about humanity. Do you want to know what it says? The council chamber fell silent. Hesral activated a hologram. Text appeared in ancient language, then translated to Valdrine. We tried to contain them. We failed. We tried to educate them. They learned too quickly. We tried to guide them. They went their own way. We tried to destroy them. We could not. In the end, we chose to leave the galaxy entirely. Not because we feared they would destroy us, because we feared they would become us. They have potential beyond anything we achieved. They could be saviors or destroyers. We could not decide which, so we left. If you find this message, you have encountered them. If they are peaceful, cherish them. If they are hostile, run. Do not fight them. Do not try to win. Humanity does not lose wars. They just make everyone else lose more. The council chamber erupted in argument. Half wanted to negotiate immediately. The other half called it coward's talk. The Empire was fracturing. On Earth, the 4 human leaders met in person for the first time since before the sleep. They stood in a bunker beneath ruins of what was once called Sol. Around them, the recovered bodies of humans who died in their pods were being prepared for burial. We won, Jiwan said, but she did not sound happy. We murdered 2 million beings, Hyejin replied. What have we become? Taemin looked at the body bags. We became what we needed to be. They started this. We finished it, Yuna was reading reports. The Valdrine Empire is collapsing. 3 species have already declared independence. 5 more are considering it. Trade has stopped. Their economy is in freefall. We broke them. Good, Taemin said coldly. Is it? Hyejin asked. We are alone in the galaxy. Every species now fears us. We proved the architects right. We are monsters. Before anyone could respond, an alert sounded. Yuna checked her datapad. Her face went pale. We have incoming transmission. It's from the Valdrine High Council. They want to negotiate surrender. The 4 humans looked at each other. They had won. They had survived. But the cost of victory was written in blood across the solar system. 2 million alien dead, 90,000 human dead, and something else lost that they could not quite name. Perhaps it was the hope they had when they went to sleep. Perhaps it was their souls. Accept the transmission, Taemin said. Let's end this. But even as he said it, he knew the war might be over, but the consequences were just beginning. The surrender negotiations lasted 3 days. The Valdrine High Council offered reparations, territory, technology, and formal apologies. They promised to leave Sol system forever. They begged humanity to accept peace. Yuna read their offer carefully. It was generous. Too generous. She recognized desperation when she saw it. The Valdrine Empire was dying. 3 more species had declared independence while the negotiations happened. Their economy was collapsing. They needed this war to end before their entire civilization fell apart. We should accept, Hyejin said. We won, we survived. That's enough. But Taemin shook his head. They killed 2 billion of us. They started this war. Now they want peace because they are losing. That's not justice. That's cowardice. Jiwon was studying the Valdrine ships they had captured. Their faster-than-light technology is incredible. With it, we could leave Sol system. We could explore the galaxy. We could find new worlds. Or we could make sure nobody ever threatens us again, Taemin replied. Yuna made the decision. We accept their surrender. But we also take 10 of their fastest ships. We keep all captured technology. And we send expeditions into Valdrine space. Not to conquer. To observe, to learn, to make sure they never rebuild enough to threaten us. It was a compromise nobody liked. Hyejin thought it went too far. Taemin thought it did not go far enough. But it was the decision. The Treaty of Sol was signed 1 week later. The Valdrine paid reparations in raw materials and technology. They formally apologized for the deaths. They agreed to stay out of Sol system for 500 years. In return, humanity agreed to stop fighting. But the treaty did not stop human ships from leaving Sol. Ji-Wan had reverse-engineered the Valdrine faster-than-light drives. They were crude copies that barely worked, but they worked enough. 10 human ships, each carrying 100 people, left to explore the galaxy. Taemin commanded 1 ship. His mission was simple: visit Valdrine space and ensure they kept their word. But once he left Sol system, something changed in him. He saw the galaxy the Valdrine controlled, hundreds of species living in fear, colonies stripped of resources. Primitives enslaved, he started helping them. When he found a Valdrine military outpost, he destroyed it. When he found a slave colony, he freed it. When he found species asking for help, he gave it. He was not following orders anymore. He was following something else. Revenge, perhaps, or justice, or just rage that needed an outlet. Other human ships did the same. They were not coordinated. They did not have a plan. But wherever they went, Valdrine control crumbled. It was not because humans were conquerors. It was because they were disruptors. They showed the galaxy that the Valdrine could be beaten. Species that had served the Empire for centuries started rebelling. They used human tactics, human weapons, and human courage. Within 6 months, the Valdrine Empire lost control of 40% of their territory. On one mission, Taemin boarded a Valdrine transport ship. Intelligence said it was carrying military equipment. But when his team broke in, they found families, children, civilians fleeing from a war zone humans had created. Taemin stood in the cargo bay, weapon raised, looking at terrified aliens. They cowered before him. Parents covered their children. An old Valdrine male stepped forward, trembling, and said in broken human language, "Please, we are not soldiers. We just want to live." Taemin's team waited for orders. They would follow whatever he commanded. Kill everyone. Take prisoners. Destroy the ship. They trusted him completely. Taemin lowered his weapon. Let them go. This ship is not a threat. His team obeyed, but he saw the confusion in their eyes. Later, alone in his quarters, Taemin looked at himself in a mirror. He barely recognized the person looking back. Hard eyes, scarred face, hands that shook sometimes from all the killing. He sent a message back to Earth. "We are winning, but I do not know what we are becoming." Ji-Won received that message. She was on Mars, working in the factories that now ran day and night. They built ships, weapons, and tools faster than ever before. She had unlocked Valdrine technology and improved it. Human engineering combined with alien science created things neither species had imagined alone. But each breakthrough came with a cost. Test pilots died when new engines failed. Engineers were injured when experimental weapons exploded. Ji-Won kept detailed records of every casualty. She memorized their names. At night, she dreamed about them. One day, a young engineer named Minho approached her. He was brilliant, eager, and reminded her of herself before the sleep. He wanted to test a new weapon design personally. Ji-Won said no. It was too dangerous. They needed more simulations. Minho tested it anyway. The weapon worked perfectly for 3 seconds. Then it overloaded and exploded. Minho died instantly. Ji-Won stood over his body and realized she had become a monster. She was sacrificing people for progress. She was pushing too hard, too fast, accepting casualties like they were numbers instead of lives. She took a week off, first time since waking. She just sat in her quarters and thought about who she was and who she was becoming. Yuna coordinated everything from Earth. She tracked every human ship. She analyzed every battle report. She calculated probabilities and made predictions. She was very good at her job. Too good. One day she predicted that a human colony ship would be attacked by Valdrian extremists. She calculated there was an 80% chance. She could send reinforcements, but that would leave another area vulnerable. The math said sacrifice the colony ship. Save 5 ships by losing 1. Una made that call. The colony ship was attacked. 5,000 humans died, including 300 children. Una was right. Her calculations were perfect. 5 ships were saved because she did not send reinforcements, but 5,000 people died because she chose math over mercy. She stopped sleeping after that. She kept working, kept calculating, kept making decisions, but something inside her had broken. Hyejin tried to be the voice of reason. She sent messages to the human ships begging them to stop the violence. She reached out to Valdrine peace factions trying to build diplomatic relationships. She published papers about cooperation and mutual understanding. Most humans ignored her. They were too angry, too hurt, too changed by war. But some listened. Slowly, a small group formed around Hyejin. Scientists, doctors, teachers, people who remembered what humanity was supposed to become. They started treating wounded Valdrine soldiers. They shared medical knowledge with alien species. They built schools on liberated worlds. They tried to show that humans could be more than warriors. One day, Hyejin received a message from a Valdrine scientist named Pelkor. He was the scholar who had decrypted the architect warnings. He wanted to meet her in person. They met on a neutral station. Pelkor was old and tired. He had spent months trying to convince his people to make peace. Now he saw the empire falling apart and blamed himself for not trying harder. "We should have left you sleeping," he said sadly. "The architects were right. You are too dangerous to wake." Hyejin looked at him with tears in her eyes. "We should have stayed asleep. We were not ready to wake. But you forced us, and now we are all paying the price." They sat together in silence. 2 scientists from different worlds, both mourning what their species had become. Back on Earth, the 4 leaders received troubling intelligence. Valdrine extremists, the ones who refused to accept surrender, had disappeared. Satellites detected them gathering near a neutron star cluster. They were searching for something the architects left behind. Una analyzed the data and went pale. "They found an architect weapon. The warnings in our database mention it. It's called a stellar converter. It can make stars explode." "Let me guess," Taman said quietly. "They are planning to use it on Sol." Una nodded. "They have enough resources for 1 activation. They will sacrifice themselves to destroy our home system. Everything we fought for, everyone still in stasis, all of it gone." Jiwon checked the calculations. "We have 72 hours before they can activate it. The weapon is protected by architect defense systems. Nobody has gotten close to it in 10,000 years. Hyejin looked at her 3 companions. "This is our fault. Our violence created these extremists. Our war pushed them to this." "Blame can wait," Taman said. "Right now we stop them, whatever it takes." For the first time since waking, all 4 leaders agreed completely. They would go themselves. They would lead the mission personally, because if they failed, there would be no humanity left to lead. The human fleet assembled quickly. 100 ships, all volunteers who knew this mission would probably kill them. They were the best pilots, the bravest soldiers, and the most desperate people humanity had. They flew to save a home that many of them had never really known, having spent most of their lives fighting in space. Taman, Jiwon, Una, and Hyejin traveled together on the command ship. It was the first time since the war began that all 4 were in the same place. The journey to the neutron star cluster would take 3 days. They had 72 hours before the Valdrine extremists activated the weapon. Time was short. During the journey they talked. Really talked for the first time in months. Taman sat in the common area staring at his hands. Hyejin sat down next to him. "You are thinking about all the people you killed," she said quietly. "Every single one," Taman replied. "I remember their faces. The ones I killed up close anyway. The ones from orbital bombardment are just numbers. Easier that way." He looked at her. "I became exactly what we were supposed to leave behind. A killer. A monster. You became what we needed to survive," Hyejin said. "But survival is not the same as living. When this is over, you need to find a way to live again." Jiwon worked in the engineering bay, constantly checking systems and making adjustments. Una found her there at 2 a.m, ship time. "You should sleep," Una said. "I cannot," Jiwon replied without looking up. Every time I close my eyes, I see Minho and all the others. I pushed them too hard. I treated people like tools to be used up. I know the feeling, Yuna said softly. I sacrificed 5,000 people because my calculations said it was the right choice. The math was perfect, but math does not scream when it dies. They worked together in silence, two women carrying the weight of impossible decisions. The fleet reached the neutron star cluster. The architect weapon was there, hidden inside a massive station that orbited 3 neutron stars. The gravitational forces alone should have torn the station apart, but architect technology defied physics humans barely understood. Defensive systems activated immediately. Automated weapons that had protected this place for 10,000 years came online. They fired beams of pure energy that could cut through anything. The first wave of human ships died in seconds. Pull back, Taman ordered. We need a new plan, but there was no time for a new plan. They had 50 hours left. Yuna calculated the odds of success. 3%. 3% chance that any of them would survive this. 3% chance they would reach the weapon in time. We go anyway, Taman said. 3% is better than 0. The fleet pushed forward. Ships died by the dozens. The architect defenses were perfect, efficient, and merciless. They did not miss. They did not hesitate. They simply destroyed anything that approached. Jiwan analyzed the defense patterns. They are targeting the largest ships first. If we send the small fighters ahead, maybe some will get through. They tried it. 50 fighters flew ahead while the larger ships held back. The defenses destroyed 48 fighters. But 2 got through. 2 ships, 4 pilots managed to reach the station, but it was not enough. They needed someone inside to disable the weapon. The 2 fighters could not do that alone. Send everything, Taman ordered. All ships. All weapons, everyone. The remaining fleet charged the station. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. But they did it anyway because that was what humans did. They fought impossible odds because the alternative was giving up, and humans did not give up. The battle was terrible. Ships exploded. People died. The neutron stars made communication difficult, so orders were delayed. The architect defenses were perfect, while human defenses failed one by one. Of 100 ships, 20 reached the station. Then 12. Then 7. Then 3. The command ship was one of the 3. It was heavily damaged, engines failing. Life support compromised. But it was close. So close. We can make it, Jiwan said, working frantically to keep the ship together. Another 2 minutes and we can dock. That was when they detected the extremist ship. It was leaving the station. The Valdrine had finished their work. The weapon was activated. It would fire in 10 minutes. Sol's star would explode. Earth, Mars, Europa, and every human still sleeping there would be erased. Can we stop it? Taman asked. G1 checked her calculations. Maybe. Someone needs to go inside the station. Find the control room. Override the activation sequence. But the station is massive. Finding the right room could take hours we do not have. I can guide someone, Yuna said. She was connected to the ship's scanners, analyzing the station structure. The control room is at the center near the neutron star gravity well. It is a straight path, but the person going in will not be able to come back out. The radiation levels are lethal. The escape pods only work in one direction, and we will need them for the rest of the crew. They all understood. This was a one-way mission. Someone had to stay behind and die to save everyone else. Taemin stood up. I will go. I have taken enough lives. Let me save the ones I have left. No, Hyejin said firmly. You 3 represent what humanity had to become to survive. Warriors, innovators, strategists. The galaxy needs to see that side of us. They need to fear us enough to leave us alone. She smiled sadly. I represent what we hope to become. Scientists, healers, diplomats. The galaxy needs to see that side too. I should go. Hyejin, no, Jiwan said. We can find another way. There is no other way, Hyejin replied. And we all know it. Let me do this. Let me show that humanity can sacrifice for others, not just destroy them. Taemin wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her eyes. He had seen that look before in soldiers who knew they were going to die but were at peace with it. The ship docked with the station. Hyejin put on a radiation suit. It would buy her maybe 30 minutes. Enough time to reach the control room. Maybe enough time to stop the weapon. Before she left, she hugged each of them. Jiwan cried. Yuna stayed strong, but her hands shook. Taemin just held her tight and whispered, "Thank you. Remember me," Hyejin said. "Remember what I tried to be. And when this is over, try to be that too." She entered the station alone. Yuna guided her through the corridors. Left, right, straight ahead, down 3 levels. The radiation was intense. Hyejin's suit began failing after 15 minutes. "I can see the control room," she said over the radio. Her voice was weak. "The door is sealed. Ji-won, I need to know how to open it." Ji-won walked her through the process. It took precious minutes. Hyejin's radiation counter was screaming. She was dying. But she kept working. The door opened. Hyejin stumbled into the control room. The architect technology was beautiful and incomprehensible. Displays showed information in languages dead for millions of years. But there, in the center, was a simple interface. Even the architects understood that emergency shutdowns needed to be simple. "I found it," Hyejin said. 60 seconds until the weapon fires. "I am inputting the shutdown sequence now." Her fingers moved over the controls. Each movement was harder than the last. Her vision was blurring. Her body was shutting down from radiation poisoning. 40 seconds. She entered another sequence. The displays flickered. 20 seconds, one more sequence. One more button. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely press it. 10 seconds, she pressed it. The displays went dark. The weapon powered down. "Sol was safe, I did it," Hyejin whispered. "Everyone is safe now." "Get out of there," Taemin said urgently. "Hyejin, move. We can still save you." "No, you cannot," she replied. She sounded peaceful. "I received lethal dose 10 minutes ago. Even if you got me to a hospital right now, I would not survive." "This is okay. This is good. I died saving people instead of killing them. That matters." "Hyejin, please," Ji-won sobbed. "Live," Hyejin said. Her voice was fading. "All of you, live good lives. Show the galaxy that humans can be more than warriors. Show them what I saw in us. Promise me." "We promise," Yuna said. "Good. That is good." There was a long pause. "It is strange. I am not afraid. I went to sleep 800 years ago hoping to wake up to something better. I guess I found it. Just not the way I expected." The radio went silent. Hyejin was gone. The 3 survivors sat in the command ship. Around them, the remaining crew waited quietly. They had lost 70 ships and 700 people. But they had saved Seoul. They had saved 2 billion humans still sleeping in stasis. The Valdrine extremists were captured by joint human-Valdrine forces. The moderates in the Valdrine government had finally won the internal struggle. They wanted peace. Real peace, not just surrender. Negotiations took 6 months. The Treaty of Seoul was rewritten. Terms included full reparations for all human deaths, technology sharing, open borders, a joint council where humans and Valdrine would work together, and most importantly, recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with all the rights and protections that entailed. But the treaty also included monitoring. The galaxy feared humanity now. They had seen what humans could do. They wanted assurances that humanity would not become conquerors. Taemin retired from military service. He returned to Earth and spent his days at a memorial site. Every day he read names of people who died. He learned their stories. He made sure they were remembered. People said he was seeking redemption, but Taemin knew there was no redemption for all he had done. There was only remembrance. Ji-won became the head of human scientific advancement.